continue our discussion. Okay, so can you guys see my screen now?
Yes, sir.
All right, let me just maximize this one. Okay, so let's have this example right here. So our main goal is to find the current flowing in the 40 ohm resistor R3. Okay, right here. So we can already identify the I1 and then the I2, but what about the I3? Okay, because we have two voltage sources right here. Wherein if you guys are going to take a look on this one, we have a current that will flow right here. Okay, and then another current that will flow right here. So if you're going to take a look at this one, so we could say that I1 plus I2 is your I3 right here. Okay, so that's basically our first assessment regarding with this uh, rotations of our loopings right here. Okay, okay. So let's have this solution, but before that, okay, we are going to have our own solution. Okay, because you might not be able to understand some of the solutions in there. Okay, so with this one, our first uh, thing that we need to do, okay, is the KCL. Okay, find the KCL equation. Okay, so you can actually have a KCL on this node, or you can have the KCL on this node. But mostly, we always deal with the KCL on the superimposed node. Super node. Okay, not superimpose. We always try to find the super node. Okay, so this is a node, this is a node, this is also a node, and then this is also a node. But when we say super node, that node is the main node that every current that will flow into. Okay, so you can actually consider this one as a super node also, but we'll just deal with one because even either of those two, okay, even you consider this one, it's still the same. Even though you consider this one, it's still the same. Okay, so let's just deal with one super node. Okay, let's say super node A. Okay, so if you guys are going to take a look at this one, this node, we have a node entering I1, and then we have another node entering I2. Okay, which is this one, and then which is this one. Okay, and then we have another current, of course, that will leave that node, which is now the I3. Okay, which is now this one right here. Okay, so again, going back to our KCL, so when we see entering, it is positive. Okay, so I1 is positive, the same with I2. Okay, but if it's leaving like the I3, then that should be negative. And then after that, equate that one to 0. Okay, so did you guys get this one so far? I1 plus I2 minus I3. Hello, hello.
Yes, sir.
Are we clear so far with this I1 plus I2 minus I3?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'm just checking because this is a very crucial explanation, because if you won't be able to understand this example number one, then there is no way that you'll be able to understand the following examples. Okay, so in this equation, let's see, this is our equation number one. Okay, we can actually come up with a simplified version of this one, wherein we can transpose this negative I3 on the other side. Okay, so we could have I1 plus I2 is equal to I3 instead, just to eliminate that 0 right here. Okay, or you can have the I3 is equal to I1 plus I2. Okay, so this is now our official equation number one. Okay, so let me just highlight this one because this is the one that we will use later on. Okay, so after KCL, then we can now apply KVL. Okay, so remember that in KVL, so as it passed through a certain uh, say load or resistor, you'll get a voltage drop. Okay, so knowing that it will give you a voltage drop, okay, so those should be, or yeah, those resistors should have a label of negative sign. So how do we do that? So you can come up with this kind of scenario. So this one is negative, of course, and then this side of your voltage source is positive. Okay, and then in here we have here positive and then negative. So later on I will explain why we have positive and negative, not negative and then positive. So the same with this resistor right here, we have positive and then negative. Okay, so if you guys are going to take a look on this uh, uh, let's say loop one right here, let me just isolate this one for now to avoid confusion. Okay, so let's just have a series connection. Okay, so we only have one loop. Okay, and then you'll have a voltage drop right here and then another voltage drop, and then as soon as you go back right here, if you're going to sum up those two voltage drop, you'll get 10 volts. Okay, so that's basically the idea when it comes to KVL. Okay, so to have a KVL, so first is the voltage source first, which is 10 volts. Okay, so I will get the sign, okay, or the polarity, okay, or the what do you call this one? Yeah, sign. Okay, this positive sign right here. So the outer part of this component. So I will get positive 10 volts. Okay, followed by okay this voltage drop on the R1. So how do we get the voltage drop on the R1? So going back to our equation, so we have V1 is equal to I1 times R1. Okay, so that's basically the equation that we're going to use on how to get the voltage drop on the R1. So in here, since we know that we're going to have a voltage drop, so it will not be added to our voltage source. Instead, it will be deducted to our voltage source. Okay, so that is why we have to consider the outer part. So if you're considering the outer part, then you have to stick with the outer part. If you're going to consider the entering part, this one right here, the negative, then you have to stick with the entering part. So either of those two, you will get the same answer, okay, as long as you're consistent, okay. So in here, I always use the outer sign on how to, finalize my signage. So in here we have positive 10 volts, and then in here we have negative I1 times R1. Okay, since we are getting the voltage drop across R1, followed by the R2 right here, which is now the I3. So we will have negative, okay, so positive and the negative, I'll consider the outer sign, negative I3 times R2. So I3 rather, since this is resistor 3, okay? And then after that, going back to our voltage source, original voltage source, just equate this 1 to 0. Okay, so this is now our equation number 2. Okay, this equation number 2 came from loop number 1. So are we clear so far on how did we get this equation right here? So basically we could call this one KVL. Let me just remove this one. KVL at loop number 1. Okay, this equation right here. So were you guys able to follow so far on how did we get this equation? Okay, what about the others? So let me know if you are confused. So this is a very crucial example. So again, if you will not be able to get this one right now, then there is no way that you'll be able to get the following examples. So we have 3 more examples later on. So please let me know if there's a part that you wasn't able to understand, okay? So this is now our loop number 1, and we can now replace our variables wherein let's say R1 is 10 and then R3 is 40 ohms. Okay, so we have 10 volts minus I1. Okay, R1 is 10 ohms, so I1 times 10 minus I3, and then R3 is 40 ohms, equal to 0. Okay, so this is now our updated equation number 2. So we can keep that one as it is already. Then we can now proceed to KVL at loop number 2. Okay, so in here Of course, we are now going to consider the right side equation. So still the same, we have to label the polarity. So we have to consider this polarity right here. So negative, positive. So the flow of current is from here to there. So of course, as it passes through this resistor right here, it will give you a voltage drop. So I will put here the positive and then negative right here. And then another positive and then negative right here. Okay. And then as it goes back right here, just equate that 1 to 0. So again, I always consider the leading part or leading sign. So we have here positive 20 volts. Okay. Then of course it's now minus since we have a voltage drop on the R2. R2. So this one will become I2 times R2. Okay. Or we can already write the value of R2, wherein the value of R2 is 20 ohms. Okay. Followed by the other voltage drop on the R3. So minus I2 times R3 is 40 ohms equal to 0. Okay, so this is now our equation number 3. Okay, so were you guys able to follow so far? And how did we get the equation number 3? So KVL at loop 2. Hello, hello, hello. Okay, so let me guys ask you one by one. So let me know if you guys really were able to get this one. Mr. Carlo, are you there?
Yes, sir.
So were you able to follow up to this point? This third equation?
Medyo ginagamay pa ako sa medyo hindi ko po magets.
Okay. Okay, so at least it's an honest answer. How about Mr. Francis?
Iniintindi ko pa po, sir.
Okay, Mr. Maaba? Maybe he's not around. Mr. Nathaniel?
Na-analyze po, sir.
Okay, how about you, Miss Leah?
Ina-analyze pa po, sir.
Okay, Mr. Jason?
Na-analyze pa po.
Okay, Mr. Sajin?
Ina-analyze din po, sir.
Okay, Mr. Isagani? Mr. Isagani? Okay, maybe he's not also around. Okay, so gets niya, yata, I think. Okay, how about you, Mr. Aaron?
Same here, sir. Ina-analyze din.
Okay, Miss Grace?
Still analyzing, sir.
Okay, Miss Sophia?
Ina-analyze po, sir.
Okay, Mr. Cameron?
Sir, analyze pa po.
Okay. So, to make it quick, just give me a thumbs up if you guys were able to get this part. So let's start with the KCL. So give me a real quick thumbs up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So dalawa, tatlo, apat. So apat lang yung nakagets for this equation number 1. On how did we get this one? 5, I guess. Okay, so maybe at least half of you guys were able to get this one. How about loop number 1? Okay, or equation number 2. And how did we get this equation number 2? So 1, 1 only. Dalawa. Okay. So hindi na ako magtatanong sa loop 2. I think si Mr. Isagani lang yung nakakuha nito. Anyway, so let's start with the equation number 1. Okay, so let's start from the scratch. So let me get this one again, so that you guys will be able to get this one, fully understand everything. Okay, So again, when it comes to KCL, okay, we always try to find the super node. Okay, when I say super node, it is a part wherein most of our components are connected with. So in here, this node right here is connected with this R1, it's connected with R2, and then the R3. And then the rest, so most of them just have two components on this path and then this path. But for this one, it has uh, three branch to be exact. Okay, so the more branch that that node is connected, then that's the more reason why you call that one super node. Okay, and then the rest are just normal nodes. So we could say KCL at loop A. So again, if it's entering, okay, if it's entering a node, that's positive. Okay, but if it's leaving a node, then that's already negative. Okay, that's the signage that you guys have to follow when it comes to forming an equation when it comes to KCL. So KCL at loop A, as you guys can see, we have I1 entering, I2 entering. So that's why we have I1 is positive and then I2 is also positive. But for this one, so it's now leaving our node A. So that's the reason why we have put here negative I3. Then after that, just equate everything to 0. And then from here, you can transpose this one on the other side, wherein it will give you this equation. I3 is equal to I1 plus I2. Okay, so this is now our equation. Why is it lagging? Equation number 1. Okay, so I hope you guys were able to get this one. So let's now move on to the KVL at loop 1. So where is our loop 1? So here's our loop 1. So the second thing that you guys need to do is label, okay, or put the signages, okay, of our components. So we have here the negative and then positive, okay, and then we have here positive and then negative. So let me just explain, just in case that you guys were able to uh, made the incorrect signage, let's say negative and then positive. So right here, as you guys can see, if we are going to follow the outer signage, we will get positive 10 volts, positive 10 volts, okay? And then at the same time, we will also get positive I1 times R1. So remember, as our voltage source will pass through a load or a resistor, it will give us a voltage drop. But in here, the one that is happening, it's like, we have another voltage source right here wherein they are being added with each other. Okay, so we could not say that this is a voltage drop anymore since it has a sign of positive. So that's the reason why the correct uh, polarity with this one, wala na yung okay, right here. So the correct polarity with this one, or the signage for this one, so this one must be positive and then negative on the other side. Okay, so the same with the R3, positive and then negative, because we must have a negative signage after passing through a certain load or resistor. Okay, so in here we have positive 10 volts minus, okay, I1 times R1 because this is a voltage drop, and then another voltage drop right here, minus I2, I1, and then R3 equal to 0. So when it comes to, dealing with loops, especially in KVL, so just consider this one loop right here. So that's why I separated this one a while ago on the other side. Okay, so you can just focus with the left side part. Okay, instead of looking at both uh, loops. Okay, so just focus on loop one since you're dealing only with loop one. And then in here you can now substitute the given values. So we don't know the value of I1, so just leave it as I1. And then R1 is 10 minus I1, and then R3 is 40, then equal to 0. So this is now your final equation number 2, since we cannot do any simplifications with this one anymore. Okay, so I hope you guys were able to get this one now. So just give me thumbs up if you guys were able to get the equation on loop number 1. Okay, so at least there's now 3, I guess. 1, 2, 3, or 4. Okay, so that's it for the equation number 2. So just leave it as it is for now. So let's now move on to KVL. Okay, at loop number 2. Okay, this one now on the right side. So we have here again the negative and then positive, positive, negative, positive, negative. Okay, so in here we have positive 20 volts followed by the voltage drop on the R2. So minus I2 times R2, and then minus, okay, since we're dealing with the outer signage, minus I2 times R3, okay, equal to 0. So after that, you can now substitute the given values of your R2 and R3. So 20 minus I2 times 20 minus I2. Oops, my bad. This is not I2. This is I3. Okay, because we have the I3 right here. But for this one, yeah, I1 and then I3. And then this one, I2 and I3. So this one is I3, and then I3 and then R3. So this is 40 ohms equal to 0. And equation number 3. Okay, so were you guys able to follow with this equation number 3? Hello, hello. So how many of you now were able to get this one? Dalawa pa din, tatlo. So at least there's now 3. Before, there were only 2. Okay, so we have an additional 1. So I hope the others were now at least able to get at least 70 to 80%. Okay, on how did we get this equation number 3. But anyway, so after getting the Kcl equation, KVL, and loop 1 and loop 2, so you now have a total of 3 equations. Okay, so the thing that you guys need to do is, try to find the value of your I1 and your I2 and then I3. Okay, once you were able to get that one, then you can now find the voltage drop on the R2, voltage drop on R3, on the R1, etc., etc. Okay, so our goal in this one is find the current flowing on the 40 ohm resistor. So we should be able to find the value of the I3 right here. Okay, so in order to do that one, so we have to use this equation number 1 right here. So in here we have to know the value of your I1 and then the value of I2. So once we learn the value of those currents, then we can now solve for the value of I3. Okay, so in here we can actually use this equation number 3 and number 2 for us to be able to solve one variable. Okay, but before we can do that, if you guys are going to take a look on our missing variables, so for the equation number 2, we have the I1. Oops, my bad. So this is not I1. Okay, so this is I3. Okay, because we have the current on this RT right here. Okay, so this is the I1, and then this is the I3. So let me just change this one, okay, into I3. Okay, so in the equation number 2, we have 2 missing unknowns, the I1 and then the I3. And then for the equation number 3, we have 2 unknowns also, which is the I2 and then the I3. Okay, so just by getting those 2 equations, we now have a total of 3 unknown variables. Okay, but we can eliminate that 1 into 2 just by substituting the value of this I3 right here onto our equation number 2 or equation number 3. So let's say we have to substitute or replace the I3 into this new equation I1 plus I2. So from equation number 1 to equation number 2. Okay, so we're going to use this 1 as our value of our I3. So 10 minus I1 times 10 minus, so our I3 is equal to I1 plus I2. So we're going to use that one, minus I1 plus I2 times 40. Okay, equal to 0. So were you guys able to get on how did we get this equation right here? So we've just simply replaced the value of this I3 into I1 plus I2. Okay, so with that, we can now have two unknowns, okay, which is the I1 and I2. So after replacing this I3 also, we're going to have two unknowns in total. Okay, so before we have three unknowns, but after substituting the value of equation number 1 into equation number 2 and equation number 3, we can now have two unknowns only. Okay, so all you need to do is eliminate or lessen the unknowns, okay, for you to be able to get the let's say one unknown into second unknown and then up to the third unknown. Okay, so we have to do that one by one. Okay, so in here we can simplify this one a little bit more into 10 minus I1 times 10 minus I1 times 40, okay, minus I2 times 40 is equal to 0. So just add or combine similar units. So 10 minus, so minus I1, and then we have minus I1 here. So 10 minus 40, or my negative 10 minus 40 is negative 50. I1 times 50 minus I2 times 40 is equal to 0. And then you can now say that this is your equation number 4. Okay, the newly formed equation number 2. Okay, so do the same thing on the equation number 3. So equation number 1 going to equation number 3. Okay, so we have 20 minus I2 times 20 minus, so our I3 is I1 plus I2. I1, so minus I1 plus I2 times 40 is equal to 0. Okay, and then just simplify this one a little bit more. So this one will become 20 minus I2 times 20 minus I1 times 40 minus I2 times 40 is equal to 0. So this one will become 20 minus, so we have 2 I2, so 20 plus 40. So I2 times 20, 60. 20 plus 40 is 60. And then minus I1 times, what is this? 40. I almost thought that that was 10. Okay. So sorry for my, ugly handwritten since I'm only using my mouse. Equal to 0. So from here, we could now say that this is your equation number 5. Okay. So were you guys able to follow up to this point? So for the equation number 4, I just simply replace the I3 into I1 plus I2. Okay, right here. And then just simplify and then combine two similar units. And then you will get this one as your final equation for number 4. The same with the equation number 5. So I just simply get the equation number 3. Okay, oops, equation number 1. And then replace the I3 into I1 plus I2. Okay, and then you will get this one as your new equation. So you could say that this is your equation number 5. So from here, we can now actually use this equation number 4 and 5 to eliminate one of the variables. Okay, so the one that we're going to use right here is called the simultaneous equation process. Okay, so from here we're going to get the 4 and 5. Okay, so what we can do is I will just copy this one and paste it right here. Let me just remove those unnecessary text. So we now have this equation number 4. And then I will also get this equation number 5. Oops, redo. This equation number 5 right here. So let me just remove the unnecessary text. There you go. And then I will combine those two. It's like, it's like we're going to add them. So in here, we could actually add them already. But before that, we have to multiply a certain value for us to be able to eliminate one variable. So if you want to solve for the, oops, my bad. So let me just arrange this one so that I2 and I2 is, aligned with each other, and then I1 and I1 is aligned with each other. So let me put this one right here, and then this one on the other side. Okay, so I2 and I2 now is aligned. I1 and I1 now is also aligned. So in here, we can 4, 8, 12, 40 times 4 times 5. So we can multiply the equation number 4, okay, into times 4, and then we can also multiply the equation number 5 into times 5, okay. So we can do this one since we multiplied everything, okay. So we didn't change anything, okay. So what we wanted to attain is we have to get a value of 200 right here, and then a value of 200 also right here. Okay. My bad. So if you're going to add them, it will just become 400. Why do we have same polarity or same minus minus? Okay, so instead of adding, we can actually change this one into subtraction. So it's also possible. Okay, so that this one will become a positive. So negative 200 plus 200 will become 0. Okay, so in here, if we are going to multiply this one by 4, we will get 40. Okay, but I think we don't have enough time anymore. Anyway, so we will just continue this one on the part 3. So goodbye for now, since we don't have enough time anymore. And then
Sir.
let's just meet again on the part 3. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right.